I'm using the liturgy for Assumption because we're so close to it. And it's beautiful prayers, so we'll just do them again instead of the prayers for the Virgin Mary on Saturday. And I can do that. And I'm also going to talk about Edith Stein, Sister Benedict of the Cross. Even though it was the 9th when she was celebrated, I think that she's one of ours, and a pretty amazing one of ours at that. So I would like to talk a little bit about her this morning. She was born in Breslau, Germany in 1891, and she was the youngest of 7 children. Her father died, I think she was like 2 years old, very young, so she really didn't know him. And her mother raised these 7 children alone. They had a business that the father ran, timber, and the mother took it over. She must have been an awfully strong woman to be able to do all this. And so it was in that environment that Edith grew up. She wasn't impressed with religion. She's very, very smart. I mean, she had a wonderful mind. And she was able to figure things out, and she wasn't sick, she didn't have any need for God. And she wasn't altogether sure if he existed. Maybe she was somewhat of an agnostic, although they don't say that, but kind of hints at it, because she stopped praying her Jewish prayers. And it's interesting that later she said she stopped feeling Jewish when she did that. Something was missing in her life. And she went to the university, and she went to study German and history. That's what she wanted to learn about. And at that time, she had, well, you'd call her a feminist. She herself said she was a radical feminist in the university. She just could not understand how it was possible to separate men from women by gender and give privilege to the one and not the other. She could not, that did not compute in her mind. And so she became a feminist. She was very aggressive about it, pushy, she says. She studied under Edmund Husserl. And what she studied later was phenomenology, which is a philosophy. And you can study it on your own, but basically it says everything is related. So you and I are related. We're not separate floating islands that don't have anything to do with each other. Virtues are related. Humility and love are related. Gentleness and patience are related. And so she studied that, and then she went to study under Max Schuler. And Max Schuler told her that if she really wanted to understand phenomenology, she needed to study the Catholic religion. Isn't that interesting? Well, she wasn't about to do that. I mean, she went to Mass to see what it was like. She went to the Lutheran churches to see what they were like. But it didn't take. And during the war, then she went off and was a nurse in hospitals for the wounded. That was what she was interested in doing. So she was somebody with a great deal of compassion, even though she wasn't interested in religion. Then after that, she went back to Dr. Schuler, and she got her doctor's degree studying under him. And she graduated with her doctorate summa cum laude. This was a bright lady. And that was in Freiburg. Then she wandered into the Frankfurt Cathedral, Catholic. She just, of course, accidentally happened to be there. On a specific day, when a woman who had been shopping came in, put down her items that she had in her basket from shopping, got down on her knees and prayed. And it wowed this saint. She said afterward, she said it was an epiphany for me, because religion had always been formal worship. When she attended the Lutheran churches and watched them, it was all this formal thing. And when she went to the Catholic Mass, it was the same thing. And when she went to synagogue, it was the same thing. And that did not appeal to her. And here was this woman who had a relationship with God. She was all alone. It wasn't in liturgy. And she was wowed. She was amazed. At about the same time, she had a friend, a couple. Let me get my notes here for you. And this young couple were Catholic. They were very devoted. And then the Lord called him, the young man, and he was killed. And when she observed how this young woman received that, she said, my whole system of belief collapsed. Because the woman said, this is my cross. To live without my husband, I accept it. And she said she had never seen anything like that in her whole life. And she wrote something about it. She said, this was my first encounter with the cross and the divine power it imparts to those who bear it. It was the moment when my unbelief collapsed. How powerful is one young woman's witness when she accepted from the hand of God what was very hard to accept. It converted this woman. It was the moment of her conversion. This was my first encounter with the cross and the divine power it imparts to those who bear it. It was the moment when my unbelief collapsed. Then she became a Christian, and while a Christian, she was trying to witness to everybody, including her mother, and which didn't work. And almost one of her sisters converted, Rosa. And she felt powerless. She said, in philosophy she had power. She could convince people of phenomenological insights and so forth. She was good at that. But when it came to getting them to accept Jesus Christ, she was powerless. And she wrote this. This was my first note. Every time I feel my powerlessness and inability to influence people directly, I become more keenly aware of the necessity of my own Holocaust. That she was going to have to suffer the cross in order to be a real witness that people would believe. Isn't that interesting too?
Yes.
This was a very insightful person. Then, in 1921, she picked up the autobiography of Teresa of Avila. And she sat down in the evening and started reading it. She read all night long. She never put it down till morning. She was mesmerized. Here was, in a Catholic context, phenomenology that as she had come to understand it, being lived. And Teresa of Avila was a woman who had found her womanhood, and it wasn't less than a man. Everything that was part of Edith Stein found an answer. She said, my longing for the truth was my single prayer during those years. My longing for the truth. I want the truth. At her baptism in 1920, she said she had not felt Jewish from the age of 14 when she stopped praying. And with her baptism, she felt Jewish again. Eventually, she became a Carmelite in 1934. And you know what she took for her motto? Henceforth, my only vocation is to love. Henceforth, that was her motto. My only vocation, my only, get that word, vocation is to love. What did Therese say? I will be love in the heart of the church. My vocation is love. John of the Cross said the same thing. So she found truth. She found this truth, that love was the most important truth she had ever found, and it was going to be her calling. And that's what she did. Actually, that's what she did. She was arrested on August 2nd in 1942. Now, some of you sitting here are old enough to remember 1942. I do. And I wasn't aware that she even existed. I knew there was a war, but apart from that, I knew nothing. Her sister Rosa had been helping in a convent, and she was also arrested by the Gestapo. And when they were taking the two of them, along with the others they had arrested, to Auschwitz for the what they knew was an extermination place, she said to her sister, "Come, we are going for our people. Come, we are going for our people." One of her great fans was a fellow professor. His name was Jan Nota, and he was extremely attached to her. He wrote about her after she was executed. "She is a witness to God's presence in a world where God is absent." Is something? She is a witness to God's presence in a world where God is absent in the Nazi regime. August 9th, she and her sister and all those who were with them were gassed and cremated in Auschwitz extermination camp. She had made her own Holocaust, and her effectiveness for us in prayer has to be significant because of that. One of the writers about another saint said, we don't make her a saint because she was martyred, although without having been martyred she probably would not have become a saint. But we make her a saint because of who she became. You won't be a saint because the communists come and shoot us all. I mean, it happens all the time. But you might become a saint because of who you become. If you become love in the heart of the church, that's sainthood, really. Let us pray.